Hi, and welcome to Sweet Bee. This is our live stream series we do in downtown Winston-Salem at Professor Bee Studios, highlighting artists in and around our area. I'm Mike Bennett, and our guests tonight have been friends of the studio for actually a very long time. We met early on. I was hosting an open mic night that I've actually mentioned on the show before. We've met several artists through that, and was just in running sound one night, and this individual came in and started doing songs and broke out into an opera number in the midst of it. And so by the end of the night, I was playing guitar and we were doing stuff, and the conversation started there, and so did the friendship. And by way of the first individual, I then met the second, and I was avoiding saying names, but let's cut to the chase and welcome to the show, Emma and Tyler. Guys, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Mike.
Absolutely. So like memories and stuff, and we could walk that road and talk about, Christmas shows of past and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
You guys have actually both been here before. You were on our Christmas special last year.
Mm-hmm.
So familiar faces for those that are tuning in. But let's not make it about what we've done. Let's talk about what's going on now, because some people may recognize each of you from the projects that you have individually, but you're actually here tonight as a duo, but also as people who have recently put together a full band and everything. So like I kind of want to talk, and then we're going to kind of talk music and then backtrack a little bit and then get back into it. But I want to start with, can you kind of give the little bit of background, like at what point did you look at each other and be like, hey, we've been doing this thing separately for a while, we should also do this together as a group? And then, kind of how that manifested, and how long have you been doing it that way, and what's that look like?
Would you like to go?
Sure. I mean, so Tyler and I had been doing music separately before we even met each other. So, I mean, and that was sort of like how we made our livelihood, and how we still make a livelihood. It's just more profitable to make money doing gigging here and there. Sure. Sometimes, actually, I think I have 4 or 5 gigs this week. But ever since we met each other and got together, we've also been playing, I would say, as a duo, just here and there when we can, whether it was just in the living room, or like me joining him on stage when I didn't have a gig, or him joining me. So over the years, we've compiled just songs that we'd written together every so often, or songs where I would sing harmony on his original songs that would become our songs. Right. And I would rename them, and then they would become our songs. So it kind of was organic, right? I mean,
it definitely was. And over the years, people have always, for whatever reason, people always want to book us together, even though we didn't at the beginning have that much material, and we weren't advertising that we were playing together, but people always wanted to book us. But we decided, I think it was like a year and a half ago, that we wanted to like really get serious.
Yep.
And right after that time, we actually were contacted by some people in Nashville who saw Emma's song Pull the Trigger, which we wrote together.
Yeah.
And they wanted to work with us, so.
That's fantastic.
And that, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of all fell together, but now that he says that, I do remember there was a time we were in the car, and I just said, look, we do this thing where we play covers like hours and hours every week, and we try as much as we can to write original during the week and all that, and then play a couple of them out during our gigs. But I looked at him and I was like, next year, like, I want it to be our goal to collaborate and write like a full album together. And I don't know if like that's what manifested this whole project, but literally it was like, I think it was not months later that we were contacted by these people, and it was like, okay, this is what we're doing. Like, we're gonna form this duo, and we're gonna go after this like original duo project and do it.
That's fantastic.
So yeah.
Okay, so from a place of playing essentially a TV mom in ad campaigns, and from being a math student in grad school, like how far removed now are those worlds from what you're doing in a place where you're putting together a full band to play a show highlighting your own original music at a ticketed event really soon. What's it look like looking back, and how much of what you're doing now is informed by what you were doing?
You know, you have that feeling when you wake up, and or you're having a dream or a nightmare, really, and you think your homework's due, and you wake up and you realize, like, I'm 27 or I'm 20, whatever, however old you are, and you're not in school anymore, and you're like so relieved that I wake up like probably a few times a year, and I'm like, oh, thank God I'm not teaching high school math. It was just not for me, and I'm more power to all the people that are out there doing it.
No, I've got a background and I was a school teacher for a while, so I get it.
Yeah.
But during that time, something started to happen, and I want to kind of talk about that a little bit because and it's hard to say it without giving it away, but like what was going on and what transpired as a result is actually part of the reason that we all ended up meeting. Not by way of that, but because of a conversation about a benefit run for a disease that I had no idea what was going on, and it was this thing. And then a couple weeks after that was actually the first time, Tyler, that you and I sat down and talked. And so, without it dominating, because I mean we've 9-ish minutes left before we get you guys on stage. I don't want to take too much time, but it's such a part of your story. That I don't want to have this conversation and not talk about it at least a little bit. But you actually at some point during that process started to lose your sight, which is part of what I've heard you say maybe drove you towards or ended up with you picking up a guitar.
Yeah.
How did that decision go? Like, how did you go from I'm losing something to I know what I'll do. I'll start playing music. Like, what was music already on your radar and this was kind of a catalyst, or how did that happen?
Music was not on my radar at all. I never thought I would sing or play anything. I was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa, or RP for short, when I was 21.
I'll stick with RP.
RP, yeah. When I was 21, I was diagnosed, and that was the same year I gave up my car keys, and I still stayed in school and finished my education, and but I started to like give up certain sports that I played, and I replaced the sports with guitar. So I kind of played like obsessively, which is kind of what you need to do because it's so hard on your fingers.
Right.
You kind of need to be obsessed for the first year at least.
So for the people who aren't furiously Googling RP right now, just like Cliff's Notes version, what is it? What happens? What's the result?
Okay, the most common version is that you have a bunch of different things happen. You lose your peripheral vision. That's the most like prominent thing.
Okay.
A lot of times it goes with color blindness, or some form of color blindness and night blindness. And so your vision kind of closes in and slowly but surely.
Gotcha.
And I like to give you an idea of what I still can see. I can see.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, I can see the time on my iPhone.
Okay.
Because it's big and it's bright.
Right.
But not a whole lot else. I get around the house basically by seeing where the windows are and knowing kind of where I am and touching stuff and moving through the house.
Okay.
So the Cliff Notes version of our story is that I was diagnosed with that. I kind of transitioned from being on a studying math kind of thing to, okay, I don't really want to teach anymore. I'm going to give music a try.
Yeah.
And my brother introduced Emma and I.
Okay.
Because he knew we were both trying to play music, at least somewhat professionally.
Right.
And that kind of brings us to the present.
Yeah, that was like 6 years ago almost.
Wow.
Which is wild.
So that was 6 years ago, but just a month, was it a month ago? 2 months ago?
A year and a month ago.
So I was going to say a month ago you celebrated
our first
1 year.
anniversary.
Yeah, so congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
How, obviously there's several great quotes out there by different artists who talk about having to go through pain and trials before you can really do music. So how much of walking through that, because as you're beginning to walk through it and you guys meet and you start doing things together, and obviously at some point you fell in love, you got married, so now you're walking through it together.
Yep.
Does any of that ever, I know it's made its way into blog posts and stories and videos and stuff, but does any of it ever make its way into the music? Like are there struggles that inform songs that come from like you guys, you know,
I'm sure,
for lack of a better way to say it, like dealing with that? Because I mean, that's not a...
I'm trying to think of like a specific song that we've written recently, or we do this writing group that based out of Winston, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know Doug Davis,
Yeah,
but
I do.
he's a good friend of ours.
Awesome.
But he hosts this writing group, and we're basically responsible for turning in a song a week.
Oh, wow.
But
That's intense.
I'm trying to think of like if any of those, but
The reason I'm and it was kind of a selfish ask because I knowing a good portion of your library, I couldn't think of any. And I know that just because of how I'm wired,
oh yeah,
it would just come out and I'd have a hard time not to. So ultimately the question would be like, is it intentional to leave it out, or is it just so normal now that you don't even think about it as, I mean, obviously you get around fine, you're not struggling, you're being successful, like it's not a quote unquote hindrance, and I don't want to downplay it, but I also don't want to make it sound like it's this huge crippling thing that keeps you from doing anything, because I've seen you do plenty.
Do you mean more the vision stuff?
The vision stuff and having to walking through that and how that affects life together.
That I have at least 2 songs that are kind of primarily about that, but they're not songs that I play out live.
Gotcha.
Not because I don't want to.
Sure.
It's just because they're not necessarily the best songs.
Okay. This just had to get them out though. So let's talk about. I want to, like I said, I don't want the whole interview to be enveloped in that. Let's talk a little bit about playing out live. Mm-hmm. I mentioned earlier you guys have just gone through putting together a full band to complement your duo act, and you're doing a show coming up. Can you talk a little bit about the band, the process, the show, where it's going to be, when it's going to be? Like, let's go ahead and kind of plug a couple of things while we're talking here, but also a little bit about that process of taking what you can do on your couch with just the two of you and having to bring in a group of musicians to complement that, and kind of what that process was like.
Well, it's cool. I play a lot up in Mount Airy at Old North State Winery, and I met a guy, Isaac Reeves, up there, who's like an incredible bassist, and he's a server up there. He serves, but he's also an incredible musician.
Awesome.
And he had moved back home from Nashville, where he'd been playing like on Broadway and everything.
Oh, wow.
And we'd had that conversation, like, not, recently, it was a long time ago, but I remember thinking, like, I need to like ask if he would ever play with us sometime. And then he also hosts an open mic night up there in Mount Airy, and he'd asked Tyler and me to come and play with them a few times. So we had, and we'd seen how good of a player he was. So when we were starting to put a full band together, we thought about him for being a bassist. And he's just been so awesome and coming down and practicing with us, and super dedicated. And then we also have a drummer that has played with Tyler's band in the past and is super talented out of Winston, and Trevor. And like we are just blessed to know some really talented musicians.
So the process of putting a group together doesn't sound like it was very difficult.
We just got lucky that the first people we asked said yes, I think, because we don't know a ton of people, but.
And we're both reading this book right now, about Stevie Nicks, but it covers like a lot of Fleetwood Mac stuff.
Yeah,
obviously.
Stevie Nicks biography.
And one of the things that Mick Fleetwood says is like they never auditioned a single person to be in Fleetwood Mac. It was always about just like
good vibes,
knowing people and having good vibes and stuff.
Cool. Yeah, it's so true.
So I like that.
They did all right.
At some point we might want to add like a fiddle player, but it's like. Let's just see.
Let's just wait till we meet a cool fiddle player with good vibes.
We don't need to audition anybody right now.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
really cool.
So we've been rehearsing we probably only had 3 full rehearsals maybe, just because it's hard to have him drive all the way from Mount Airy, but they've been rehearsing like on their own, and they're just so talented. They've picked everything up quick, and then I've been actually playing a lot more keyboard this year. That was kind of like my resolution, was to like get back into piano. So I'll be playing piano
for the
first time live,
awesome.
full band. I know, it's like wild. So that's like another piece. But yeah, we're super excited. The show is October 13th, which is this coming Sunday.
Yep.
at the Double Oaks Bed and Breakfast, which is this beautiful historic house that they've turned into a bed and breakfast. And they have, like, the venue is a stage in the backyard area. So it's this really, like, intimate, cool feeling, and they serve wine and everything. So it'll be a really nice fall vibe.
Yeah. Sounds great. So that's one plug. And the only other thing I want to talk about, and we're running short on time, but I don't want to not mention this, is that you guys are actually in the midst right now of putting together your EP as well. Yes. Mm-hmm. And we don't really have an end date or anything. I know you guys are right in the midst of it, so I don't want to unpack too much of that. But what I do want to do is kind of take this opportunity as far as updates and that kind of stuff. If we can tell people, like, where they can find you on social medias, website address, that kind of stuff, kind of tell people where they can go, because we're going to take a break after we do this and get you guys ready to do a couple songs. But just kind of tell people where they can go find you and get updates, because by way of that, hopefully they'll be able to, you know, get updates on the EP and everything else, and we'll kind of direct traffic that way. So social medias, website, streaming services, where can people find your stuff?
Yeah, so our stuff is, I mean, if you want to follow us on Instagram and Facebook, it's both Emmanty Music, EMANDTY Music. And then our website is just www.emmantymusic.com.
Awesome.
So
and
pretty straightforward.
Spotify, iTunes, any of that? Or
we do have Spotify.
Okay.
Our song Prologue, which was the song that Tyler wrote to propose to me, is on Spotify.
There's a whole nother story.
I know. We didn't hit on that
yet.
Have
to have you back so we can talk about it.
But that's M&Ty.
Okay.
So on Spotify and iTunes. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. So we're going to take a really quick break. Go all of those places. Go throw them some likes. Follow them. Bookmark their page. Stay tuned for updates. Stream their music. Give them some love. But we're going to take a really quick break, and we'll be right back with some music from Emmanty. You guys.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I am Ty, and this is Em. We are Emmanty. We're going to do a couple songs for you guys. The first one is called Chasing Ghosts. And the idea of this song, we wrote it with some of our friends out in Nashville. The idea of it is when you're in a relationship and it's kind of run its course, but you're still trying to fight to keep it together, even though it doesn't really have a chance of making it. And so you're chasing the ghosts of who you used to be. That's the idea. So here goes.
Should have known by now. We're just chasing ghosts. Is it time we put to rest these hollow hopes? Lord knows we tried our best. We fought the last fight, told the last lie. Chasing ghosts, or are they chasing me? You reach out your hand and it goes right through me, and I can't understand what's happening to me. We go round and around, and should have known by now. We're just chasing ghosts, and it's the time we put to rest these songs. was so right, then you meant everything to me. Now it's goodbye for the last time, but I know you'll haunt me in my dreams. Like we're chasing ghosts. Is it time we put to rest these hollow hopes? We tried our best, we fought the last fight, told the last line, or for the last time, tell me, are we chasing ghosts? Or are they chasing me? The ghosts of who used to be.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all. So this next song, I wrote this one a couple months ago, probably, while I was brushing my teeth. It's just as simple as that. It's not a super in-depth concept, but as the song evolved, I wrote the first verse and chorus pretty quickly, and then I let the song be for a month or two. And then maybe last week, I wrote the second verse and then bridge. It's kind of like a sexy song, as Tyler says. But yeah, you did.
I did.
And then, but it's also kind of a song about just wanting to, like, get away or be free. So that's pretty much it. It's kind of simple. It's called Monroe Mama. You might say I'm a wild one. I've always been on the run. Never answered to anyone until I met you. You might say that I'm free. Always choose who I want to be. And I'll make my own company until you met me. But I could be your Marilyn Monroe mama. Little white dress coming up too high. Take me for a spin, honey, aren't you gonna take the town red with me tonight? Oh, 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 red with me tonight. Oh, so baby, let's have some fun. We could go on the run. You could look through anyone with your emerald eyes. 'Cause it's just you and me, and our date with destiny. Well, you could come or let it be, so you decide. And I could be a Marilyn Monroe mama. Little white dress coming up too high. Take me for a spin, honey, aren't you gonna be the town red with me tonight? Whoa, whoa, oh, red with me tonight. And all I want is to be with you. To get out now, let's make a move. And all I know is you feel like home. I want to be free, just not alone. But not alone. And that could be your Marilyn Monroe moment. Little white dress coming up too high. And take me for a spin, honey, aren't you gonna be the town red with me
Thank you very much.
Guys.
Thanks so much for watching and listening, everybody. Once again, we are Em and Ty. Em, where can they find us?
M&Time Music.
Yeah.
On Instagram.
That's what we needed. No, that was good. That was good. You answered the question before I asked it. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in. We are back in 2 weeks with our 1-year anniversary show, which is going to be different and a treat. So we hope you tune in a couple of weeks. We'll see you guys then. Have a good night. Thank you guys again so much for being on. It was fantastic. It was really